Hello, Dawgpound South campers. This is the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Steve Gill. I'm back. Ice Storm Fern was not going to put me down. 12 days without power. You know, back in 94, we had a huge ice storm, and I was only 17 hours without power. Now, my wife and I were 12 days without power. But other than that, I'm back. I have internet, which never left me. That's why I encourage people to get off a cable and go to Wi-Fi. It's a very simple process. You get your Wi-Fi router, you get you some Fire Sticks or Roku sticks, you plug them into your TV, boom. You don't have to wait. There are neighbors in my in my district who are still waiting for Comcast and AT&T to come hook them up. My Wi-Fi came on as soon as my power came on. Boom. All right. Well, a lot of stuff has happened since I last talked to you guys. I think it was, what was it? Saturday? I can't remember. It was the Saturday before it started snowing and icing. So it's been a while. But hey, new head coach. I have no problem with it. Since listening to him speak and reading a lot about him, I like his attitude. I like what he's going to bring. Apparently, he won over everybody in the interview process. My guy told me that he knew it 2 weeks before it happened, but I got a little. Usually I can read between the lines really well with him, but I thought he was talking about Schwartz as going to be the next head coach when he kept saying somebody with experience, and I had totally forgotten about him. So that was my bad. But yeah, I like the hire, and I like what he's doing already on the offensive side of the ball. Terrible offense, so let's fix it. Let's get the running game coordinator from Baltimore. They're always in the top 5 in rushing. Yay. Offensive line coach, Warto, and now they've assistant offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson, 2 guys with mega experience. Hired within with Christian Jones, tight end coach, now is the wide receiver coach. He did a hell of a job with Fannin. So I've got no problem there. I have no problem with the people he's hired so far. And I know a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about Jim Schwartz, but let's take a dive into Jim Schwartz and his defense. He wanted Sika Ika, and he convinced Andrew Berry to draft Sika Ika. Because Andrew Berry likes to bring in players their coaches want, just like Bill Callahan wanted Jedrick Wills. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. And Kevin Stefanski wanted, what was that wide receiver from Purdue? So, you're GM. You're not going to hit on every pick, and you try to accommodate your coaches. Okay. So let's look at last year with Jim Schwartz's defense. A lot of people talked about it, even though Houston had the best defense in the league. I keep going back to the Vikings game where they let Carson Wentz march down the field late and score a late touchdown. They had the lead. I think of the game against the Titans, a god-awful football team, and they were so concentrated in the first half of getting Miles his sack record that they let the Titans run all over him. Go back and look at it. Was his defense great? Was it the best in the league? It's up there, but there are times when it just annoyed me that sometimes took his personality. Was the defense great because of Schwartz, or was defense great because of Banda, the secondary coach, or Tarver, the linebacker coach, or Cesar, the defensive line coach? I would argue it was better because of those 3 guys. So what's going to happen at defensive coordinator? Well, first of all, Jim Schwartz took his ball and went home. That's the only way I can put it. Short and sweet. He got mad. He took his ball and he went home. I don't want a guy like that as a coach on my team, my favorite team, and you shouldn't either. I'm sorry you didn't get the head coaching job, but bringing him back would have just created the most awkward situation in the world. It would be like bringing Bubba Ventrone back, and nobody wants that. So, why force it? The candidates weren't told they had to keep Jim Schwartz. None of them were. They were told that they would have liked to, and there's a difference, So I don't. Good luck, Jim Schwartz. As I had said on our Thursday show many, many times after Kevin Stefanski was fired, if Jim Schwartz doesn't get the job, he'll leave. And I said, fine. Who out there wouldn't want to coach a team with the reigning defensive player of the year, the reigning defensive rookie of the year, and a Pro Bowl corner, and a Pro Bowl safety, and a number 5 pick who was top 5 in rookie tackles? I mean, plus, if they can convince Devin Bush to come back, or they get JOK back, this defense just gets better. Tyson Campbell, perfect corner. I mean, this defense is loaded. And if you're a young coach or a coach that's currently on the team, you're thinking, I could really make a name for myself with this defense. In the next hiring cycle, I'll be involved, heavily involved. So Moton has kind of hinted in his press conference that they want to hire from within. So I'm gonna start with that, and then work my way out as to what the rumors we heard. We've heard about the Browns' next defensive coordinator. But first, let's take a quick break. All right, we're back. This is the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, brought to you by Hemisphere Coffee, where they shake the hands of the farmer. Okay, so who internally would be a good choice? Well, you've got Banda and you've got Tarver. Banda's already interviewed for a defensive coordinator position this cycle. Tarver has been a defensive coordinator. He took over in the Raiders when they fired the coach. And he also was defensive coordinator at my alma mater, Vanderbilt. I don't remember much of him when he was in Vanderbilt. So my personal choice, if the hire would in, is Banda. I'm very impressed with him. Outside, there were 2 names mentioned, Dino Vasso and, of course, Corey Undlin. Now, Vasso, as of this morning, has already told people he's going back to the Texans. So Undlin, he was with the Browns in 2005 through 2008. He was defensive coordinator 1 year in Houston, and they're the number 1 defense. And he's had interaction, and he's crossed paths with our head coach down in Jacksonville. If I had my pick of anyone, I would stick with Banda. He knows the system. They already said they want to keep the same system. So why don't you just keep the coaches from that same system? And the most important 3 of those coaches are, of course, Banda, Tarver, and Cesar. Keep all 3 of those guys. Let Banda put some more wrinkles in. Young guy. So that would make me happy. That would make me very happy. So also, I noticed that Mike Bloomgren, the new offensive line coach, the last year's offensive line coach, is gone. Well, they've upgraded from him with Wartrup and Johnson. I'll tell you that right now. So what's going to happen with Schwartz? Well, you hear him connected with Vegas, but the Browns still own his rights because he's still under contract for the Cleveland Browns. No, you cannot get a draft pick for a coordinator. You get draft picks for front office staff who are part of the Rooney Rule, and you get Draft picks for coaches. You don't get a draft pick. You don't trade a coordinator for a draft pick. Sorry, that's not how the rules work. However, if you let him go, you might get a consideration from the team. I'll give you a perfect example. When Callahan left and went to the Titans, he wanted to coach with his son. Perfectly understandable. And he was under contract with the Browns. The Browns let him out of his contract because they were being nice to Bill Callahan. Later, the Titans traded for, I can't even remember this guy, a developmental offensive lineman, and they sent the Browns a seventh. Now, the Browns were probably going to cut this guy, and the Titans knew it. So in consideration and being nice, because the Browns were nice and let Callahan go, they sent the Browns a seventh round pick. So there might be one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge deals involving Jim Schwartz and the Raiders. Who knows? But if you see Jim Schwartz, all of a sudden, the Browns let him out of his contract. He goes to the Raiders. Then later in free agency, the Raiders trade for some developmental player on the Browns squad. Then there's your compensation. And that's all it's going to be. Okay? You're not going to get a draft pick for a coordinator. Besides, I've heard he's going to sit out a year and weigh his options. And that's fine. Also, there's talk about the Browns quarterbacks. Malik Willis is being connected to Phoenix and Miami, which sounds about right. So, a lot of Browns fans fell in love with this kid. I'd really like to get somebody into the Browns this season as a starter. This guy's only attempted 155 passes. Coming out of college, I wasn't too convinced on him. He played at Liberty, and yeah, he tore up his conference teams. But then when he played one Power 5 team, and that was Ole Miss, and they destroyed him. So you got to keep that in your back of your mind, plus 155 passes. So who could they get? I wouldn't be upset with Geno Smith. I know a lot of Browns fans are saying, well, he looked terrible against the Browns last year. Yeah, but prior to that, he was pretty damn good. They need somebody to come in and start. I'm sorry. Shedeur Sanders is right now still is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm sorry. He isn't. Yeah, I know. He made the Pro Bowl. Ooh, Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl. He threw a pick during a flag football game. You can't make this stuff up. So you want Malik Willis, and yet you already have two rookies. And don't even bring up Deshaun Watson. He's never going to see the field again as a Cleveland Brown. If anybody tells you that, no. So you got Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and Malik Willis. That scares the crap out of me as a quarterback room. I'm sorry. That scares the crap out of me. So they got to find a quarterback. They got to find a starting quarterback. They know that they're young, and they know that it's a developmental year, just like last year. I have perfect faith that Andrew Berry can fix this. Usually GMs, they get hooked up on positional value. That's the way to put it. And they look at their charts as the draft is going on, and they see positional value. I was happy to see Andrew Berry last year ignore positional value in the second round when they took Carson Schlesinger and Quinshon Judkins. Now, great running back draft last year. They could have got a running back anywhere, and they did. They got another one in Dylan Sampson. And a linebacker with the first pick in the second round. Everybody, all Browns fans were like going, well, they like Quinshon Judkins because he was an Ohio State player. But everybody was going, a linebacker? A linebacker? If you watched the shows before the draft, I was very high on Carson Schlesinger, and they needed to replace JOK, and he did. The rest is history. Kid is phenomenal. And Quinshon Judkins, once he gets healthy, will be the bell cow of this team and running back. So I was happy to see Andrew Berry get out of his little GM box and not stick to that positional value. That gives me great hope for the 2026 draft. That tells me that he is going to concentrate on fixing the offense. And it all starts in free agency, and it all starts with offensive linemen. I am still wanting to have an offensive lineman at the number 6 pick. Until I just think otherwise, that's what I want. I want an offensive line. Fano, McGuire, or however you say his name. Those are the guys I want. Okay, but it all starts in free agency. They got to go out and attack the offensive line in free agency. So let's see what happens. And yes, they have plenty of money. Don't let anybody in Cleveland scare you into thinking they're broke or cash strapped or in cap hell. They are not. They've got the money to spend and they can do it. All right. I noticed that we had a little disagreement between a national reporter and a local reporter about how the whole Jim Schwartz situation went down. Diana Rossini was reporting that there was no contact between the new head coach and Jim Schwartz for 3 days after he was hired. But then Mary Kay comes along and said they had a great conversation shortly after he was hired. So just if you're going to go out there and you're going to go on social media, just be prepared to see things that make no sense whatsoever, like trading Myles Garrett, or somebody suggested that Atlanta was going to trade for Denzel Ward. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. So, there's a lot of people that just want to get you to click on things, and they're going to lie right to your face. And, and fans are going to be fans. I mean, look at the Atlanta fans. I mean, they were so upset Schlesinger won the defensive rookie of the year, and they were advocating for James Pierce, their rookie. James Pierce got into a lot of legal trouble. He is, and the way it was described and viewed, I just, it's not good for him. And I just hope his victim, all the best, because sometimes these guys can get out of control. Now, we don't know all the facts yet, but still, it does not sound good for anybody. So it's Super Bowl Sunday. 2 teams are in the Super Bowl that have been in the Super Bowl before, which I always like. The next team that has never been to the Super Bowl, there's a short list. I want that team to be the Cleveland Browns. So what were these teams? What were they saying about these teams when in week 1, when everything started? What were their odds of making the Super Bowl? Okay, 1%. Both teams had a 1% chance going into week 1 of making the Super Bowl. The Patriots and the Seahawks. All right. So before you think it's impossible, here are 2 teams playing today that had a 1% chance of making this game. That's why the NFL rules the roost. They keep putting new teams in the playoffs. Different teams who made it 1 year, they're not in there. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They look like a train wreck. So it's always that turnover that the NFL loves. That's why they dominate. People call them the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I call them the 800-pound gorilla that owns the room. So now we wait. Now we wait to see who the defensive coordinator is. But the more important hire in my eyes is special teams coach. I am waiting to find out who they hire as special teams coach. I mean, that the special teams cost the Browns about 6 games last year. Block punts. Jets, they should have beaten the crap out of the Jets. 2 returns for touchdowns. They should have beaten they should have swept the Bengals. They should have won that first game. And I'm glad to see our kicker turned it around and just made it. I mean, but special teams killed us. And the defense cost us 3 or 4 games. Laps. That Viking game, I will never forgive that Viking game. Or the Titans game. I mean, the Titans knew the Browns were going to try to get Myles Garrett the sack record. And they ran the ball. How do you not get sacked? You run the ball. You run away from Myles Garrett. And they did it successfully in the first half. Buffalo game, same thing in the first half. Their running back racked up over 100 yards in the first half. That falls squarely on Jim Schwartz. That's why I am not worried about the defense. But what I am worried about is the special teams hire. They got to get somebody in here that is good, that knows how to teach coverage. That's the most important thing because of this goofy kickoff rule. They need to get somebody in who can teach coverage. All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoys the Super Bowl today. I will. No dog in the hunt, no sweating, no anger. Don't really care. I'm going to root for the Seahawks just because I can't root for the Patriots. I don't care who their head coach is. Oh, by the way, he won Coach of the Year. So now he's 2-time Coach of the Year. Watch out, Mike. You might get fired. So anyway, this has been the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Steve Gill, and I'm glad to be back. Here in the future, I'm going to start attacking a little bit more on the free agency market and start looking at the draft because, you know, they call people who love the NFL draft draftniks. I'm a Hi, my name's Steve. I'm a draftaholic. So you'll be hearing more about free agency and the draft here in my future shows. And I can't wait to get back on Thursday with John and Samuel. So everybody, enjoy the Super Bowl. And as always, thank you for following, listening, subscribing, and watching. We're just Browns fans like you. So everybody, go Browns.